there are four big stories that I would say that the Jewish people have told themselves about what the State of Israel means or could mean. This was a much more common phenomena prior to the emergence of the State of Israel, when the entire activity of the State of Israel was an imaginary exercise. So think about this as like, if we could have a state, what for? What problem is the State of Israel meaning to solve? And these ideas, imaginary questions for which the State of Israel provides an answer, linger in our memories as the way in which we understand this story as it's playing out. So the first that I want to look at, I'm in the source book on page 16. The first Israel we imagine, I use this very simplistic term, the Israel of Messianic Universalist Utopianism. The Israel, I know it's like wakes people up a little bit. The Israel of, or puts them to sleep, as the case may be. The Israel of Messianic Universalist Utopianism. Just to play out the words, Messianic meaning it's the solution to an existential problem that is a massive kind of historical intervention to solve this huge problem that the Jewish people has had. It's like the Messianic age. It's a utopia in the sense that it's meant to be a perfect place. And not, however, just a utopia, but a universalist utopia, meaning it's not just perfect for us, it's perfect for everyone. Now, the more common place that this appears is in texts like the third text from Isaiah, right, where Isaiah says, "It's too little that you should be my servant and that I raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the survivors of Israel. I will also make you a light of nations." Right? That tricky, tricky phrase, that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth. So one idea that the Jewish people have about our eventual sovereignty is that it's not just a mechanical version of sovereignty that's good for us as the Jewish people, but it's a version of sovereignty that is judged by whether it's actually being good for the rest of the world. This idea that the Jewish people have, that our state is supposed to be a universalist utopia, is on one hand one of the great legacies of our tradition, and on the other hand one of the greatest chutzpahs that we've ever perpetrated against the world. We are like a fraction of a population glitch of a mid-sized Chinese village. That is what we are in total in the world. And yet, our tradition has told ourselves over and over that our success is not just for us. It's not about surviving in some remote corner of the world. It's actually our thriving is judged by whether it actually constitutes a light to the nations. It brings God's sovereignty to the rest of the world. In modern Zionist terms, this is actually expressed by Martin Buber, a German Jewish philosopher who ultimately moved to Israel prior to the creation of the State of Israel. Very ambivalent politically about the political setup of what the State of Israel ultimately constituted, was a kind of binationalist in the pre-state period. One doesn't know what he would think of the current State of Israel today. But he says as follows. Look at the fifth line in. Zionism sees the goal of Judaism as the redemption of the human spirit and the salvation of the world. That's the goal of Judaism, not to do good things for the Jewish people, right? But the redemption of the human spirit and the salvation of the world, the great chutzpah of Judaism. But we see as a means to the realization of this goal, the liberation of a tormented people and its gathering around God's sanctuary. What is Zionism to Buber? Zionism is the instrumental tool where I need to do something to rehabilitate the political status of the Jewish people as an instrument towards ultimately doing something that's going to be good for the rest of the world. Zionism is essentially the first step, short-term solution, towards the longer-term phenomenon of doing something that's good for the rest of the world. If you look down at the last piece of the passage, the struggle for a homeland is a national one. The struggle for Jewish communal existence in Palestine will be a supranational one. We want Palestine not for the Jews, we want it for mankind because we want it for the realization of Judaism, which will be ultimately good for mankind. This is a very lofty, big idea. Zionism is not the short-term political solution that's born in the 19th century as a part of competing nationalisms. Zionism is the tool by which the Jewish people play the nationalism game in order to commit to the big vision of what Judaism is supposed to be, which is a light unto the nations and a vision for the rest of the world. Now, with each of these imaginative stories, I want you to think about what they offer positively and what are their trapdoors.